Long time no see, but we're back with a punch and a bunch of news right here, right now. Greetings Romies and welcome to Rom, the channel sharing the joy of sim racing, and to a regular news roundup, our weekly sim racing news. Welcome to the channel, thanks for stopping by. My name is Serta and I will be your host for this video. If you have any news for us, send us a mail to news@romrom.net. Oh man, it's been almost a month since we last informed you, but I got the flu, then Ike got it, then stuff happened, like my EV Hyundai of 2.5 years not loading anymore, not going near anything having to do with Hyundai ever again in my life, and before you know it, bam! The holidays hit us. Anyway, Happy New Year everyone! We're sure this is again going to be a great year for sim racing. And we don't say this only because the Rom family has grown to over 3,000 members. The stats of December speak a similar language. The immense content drop by Automobilista 2 goes in the same direction, and, well, our news are chock full. Let's start with short news. F1 Manager 2022 got a very small update fixing an issue where drivers, mostly the others, would overtake during safety car, and it seems the useless Razer Chroma integration led to game crashes, so it was useless and dangerous. The crashes have been fixed, the useless update kept. Oh well. Formula 1, being easier to buy than a politician, is forbidding their pilots to have an opinion not sanctioned by them, as they've sold themselves to Saudi money. I mean, at least while they are keeping in line with the well-known Saudi tradition of extreme censorship, they are not wanting to behead anyone, contrary to Saudi tradition. Oh well, it's a good thing I don't follow F1 anymore. On the other hand, wake me up when Andretti Cadillac are making things difficult for the fat cats, will ya? WRC Generations fixed an issue with a hybrid launch control and another with TCS, some controller issues, and have changed the lowest league name from beginner to amateur. Nothing game-changing, we fear. Also, SCS, makers of American Truck Simulator, want you to know that 2023 is a sunflower year, and this being the US of A, our operative in the field, Cody, tells us they can only be talking about Kansas. So get your red shoes and wait a while before you click them 3 times, because they did not tell us when exactly we'll be able to get to Kansas. Kunos have issued a small update with balance of performance changes for a lot of the GT4 cars. Weight is being added to the Maserati and Alpine, removed from the Audi, BMW and McLaren. The McLaren has also had a downforce and power reduction, as has the Porsche, and the KTM has had a power boost and an augmentation to the downforce. Finally, the Camaro has had a power boost, so the slidey muscle car can burn even more tires. Burning tires may be the mood of some of motorsport games developers, according to Insider Gaming, as they have threatened to file a lawsuit against the company because of unpaid wages. It seems, again accordingly to this one news outlet, that 30 Russian developers have not gotten their wages since October, with the company citing the war in Ukraine, Slava Ukraina, as reason for not paying. A dick move if I ever saw one. Not only did MSG not pay, they were or are forcing the employees to sign a termination of employment contract. After only getting excuses, it seems the employees are now willing to go one step further and file a lawsuit, and we wish them all the best for that. The Beam.NG developers have been very busy with version 0.27, 0.271 and a hotfix for the latter. The focus of the 0.27 family is very much off-roading, which is arguably where Beam.NG has always excelled. In this release, they have added a new location, Johnson Valley, and opened an arid 10-kilometer environment which will suit the new vehicles to all those wanting attempting to reenact the most risky version of the Rally Dakar. They have also added and updated parts of the dockyards in the West Coast map and updated the movie studio. A new quarry side section has also been added, bringing even more variety to the classic map. There have also been other fixes on the East Coast Hirochi Raceway and Utah maps. Regarding vehicles, version 0.27 added the SP Dune Kicker and Rock Basher, Autobello, Autobuggy and Stambeco, and the FPU Wydra, a fascinating vehicle that will be interesting to see how if it races. There is also new specialized variations of the Gavril D series in the off-road ambulance, Ibishu Hopper with a rock crawler spec, and a team off-road trailer from the Gavril T series. They have also completely revamped the electric driving characteristics for all the EVs in the sim, taking direct influence from real manufacturers' driving models to create a list of driving modes in the powertrain section of the pie menu, which adjusts the regeneration characteristics to your liking, including one-pedal driving used by Nissan amongst other manufacturers in real life to use the regenerative capability of their cars to completely stop the car when needed. In line with this step in realism, the open world maps have a very early version of refueling available from fuel stations in the map. Simply click Enable gas stations in free roam in gameplay settings and they will appear on your map. Lastly, they have revamped the bloom effect, which now has a lot more impact on the colors in the world, and added 31 brand new missions, including 2 new mission types. All in all, a massive update with even more changes and fixes, which will be linked in the description. And if you haven't jumped into Beam.NG yet, now is a very good time to boot it up and attack the hills. Raceroom has seen some updates and content drops in the last weeks. We start, of course, with the Driver's Pack, which is something like a collection of training cars and one training track. With the well-known Mazda MX-5, a good car for beginners, as well as the lesser-known Crossley cars through which you can learn to drive with only mechanical downforce, and the Praga R1, a car that has been in Assetto Corsa since, well, forever. You can drive in any of the tracks Raceroom has to offer, or you take the Circuit de Charade included in the pack, a really existing track near Clermont-Ferrand in France and home of a racing school. But the work of KW Studios does not stop with content, as with 2 other updates they have introduced drivetrain oscillations, which you will notice especially when changing gears or pressing the throttle, but also triggered by changes in the track surface. Also, they have extended the situations and sounds for backfires that were introduced in the last update. Staying with sound, external sound has been tweaked, made louder and more realistic. Add to this some graphics improvements as well as specific corrections for some tracks and cars, and you have a better Raceroom. The details of the update can be found in the links in our description as always. Not quite sim racing news, but certainly sim racing adjacent, news has come from the bowels of EA that 5 heads of staff will be departing the Criterion studio following the release of Need for Speed Unbound. Vice President Matt Webster, Executive Producer Pete Lake, Senior Technical Director Andre Shires, Head of Studio Development Alan McDermott, and Head of Content Steve Uphill have left in the wake of a fairly tame reception of the new direction for Need for Speed games, to be replaced by Charity Joy, Geoff Smith and Steve Cuss, all of Codemasters' origin. Although positive, sales for the Need for Speed games have been waning from the heady heights of Most Wanted and Carbon, but Unbound hasn't been an awful release. Ike has 2 theories that came to his mind on reading these news though. On the one hand, it may be the natural ebb and flow of management through a company, and perhaps the 5 above have had enough of their EA dominion and it's sheer coincidence to come at the same time, or On the other hand, this is the first move towards Criterion and the recently acquired Codemasters being merged into a single EA studio based in the UK. Cody's and Slightly Mad Studios, let's not forget, have been under the EA banner for a little under 2 years, more than enough time to assess the management in place and decide who is the better lead for a potential Criterion studio. As for the truth, only the people involved at the moment know. If you have any better ideas, post them in the comments. Either the Studio 397 developers found themselves with a little bit more free time than expected, or Motorsport Games found themselves with a little bit less cash than expected. In any case, rFactor 2 surprisingly got a little bit of what they call bonus content at the end of last year, featuring the Porsche GT3 Cup 992 as well as the Vauxhall Astra BTCC for each €5 USD. The content drop also brings the 2022 season liveries for BTCC, a revised tire model and a balance of performance for all BTCC cars available. The Porsche has been developed together with Porsche and with Porsche Cup driver Rudi van Boeren. The Vauxhall Astra may be on its last laps with the BTCC, but the car is still being used, so fair addition. I just don't know why I should pay €5 for it. Added to the DLCs, there's also been some updates to Bahrain, Daytona, Sebring, Nordschleife, Circuit d'Azur, Laguna Seca and Botnia Ring, all with small fixes here and there. Nothing big, but sometimes the small errors can be as infuriating, so we're not protesting in any way, shape or form. Also, the stock car 2018 cars got extensive changes, the Caterham Academy a couple of small ones, while the Van Wall LMH, the BMW 330, the Hyundai i30, the Infiniti Q50, the Toyota Corolla and the Ford Focus got some changes too that make them more realistic. All the BTCC cars got the 2022 teams added, as we said before, the new tire model and changes in the engine cooling. Find all the details as always in the link in the description of the video. Oh yeah, and you can get all content from 2022 in the complete 2022 pack for the price of only €100 USD. So you'll get less than, say, in the Automobilista 2 Season Pass for more money. The DLC policy of rFactor 2 is getting beyond ridiculous. Well, not only did we register the most sim racers ever in this December, which is only partially due to Beam.NG registering the most users ever, Assetto Corsa and Automobilista 2 also have the most users ever since we started collecting data almost 2 years ago. Most of the rest of the sims and adjacent also show good numbers, with Assetto Corsa Competizione and Raceroom showing good daily average numbers, as surprisingly also did Dirt Rally 2 and Wreckfest. The LFM honeymoon seems to be over for rFactor 2, though, its numbers going down from a high point for the second month in a row. And as Dakar Desert Rally is also going down, we'll stop telling you about it for now. Should the game ever recover, we'll be very happy to add it to our list. One sim we very likely will be adding to the list will be WRC Generations, which in its first month, and based solely on the Steam data, as Epic does not make usage data public, already got respectable 261 average daily users, which is more than Kartcraft, NASCAR 21 and Dakar Desert Rally combined. Just saying. Overall, it's been again a good month for sim racing, and much as it was to be expected in December, even in this mild December, these numbers show our hobby is going strong. Welcome new sim racers, there's fun to be had for everyone here. Patrons allow us to ignore any YouTube bullshit and allow us to invest in high-quality sim racing journalism like Sim Racing Expo or buying hard-end software without strings attached. Amongst other perks, your support will fix your name for posterity like this, but you'll also get to know what we plan and what we're doing, so a big thank you to our patrons. If you come here regularly, please consider subscribing. It's taken Reza more time than expected to inform us about what they've been working on, but there are good reasons for that. The size of the update is a very good one, as we know they've been working on testing multiplayer to find or reproduce the issues many have been having, as well as thorough testing of the sim. All what we're going to explain here came out on the last day of last year with the version 1.4.5.2. Okay, plus a small hotfix shortly thereafter. One very important thing this means is that there's not going to be big changes to the sim like what happened with the 1.4 version. While we all expect another big drop during 2023, even maybe in the first half of the year, this is not it. That's not to say we're getting nothing, much to the contrary. First thing we are getting in the 1.4.5.2 is going to be new content. The following DLCs came together with a new version. Supercars Part 1. This DLC will bring the Corvette C8Z06, the McLaren Senna, of which only 500 units have ever been produced, and the Brabham BT62, with even less units produced at only 70. From the information we have available, these cars are fully licensed, so expect Reza to have done their utmost to make them accurate. The DLC costs €10 USD. Brazilian Racing Legends Part 1. Reza is a Brazilian company. There's been a couple of acceptable Brazilian drivers in F1 history. Of course, they're not going to sit idly. The drop everyone was expecting from Reza brings two cars driven by Nelson Piquet in his illustrious racing history and three of the McLaren Hondas Ayrton Senna drove, decidedly one of the all-time greatest of all times in Formula 1. As a bonus, the pack will include the Lotus 98T driven by Senna in 1986. If you love historic open-wheelers and especially historic F1s, this is a pack you don't want to miss. Specifically, it brings the Brabham BT49 Cosworth V8 driven by Nelson Piquet in 1981, the Brabham BT52 BMW i4 Turbo, again as driven by Nelson Piquet in 1983, this time with a BMW motor, but careful with it, it packs an impressive torque. Let's move over to Ayrton Senna with the Lotus 98T Renault V6 Turbo he drove in 1986, but quickly move over to the McLaren MP44 Honda V6 Turbo of 1988, the first car Senna drove to win an F1 championship after 13 pole positions out of 16 races. Of course, the McLaren MP4 5B Honda V10 is included in this pack, just maybe don't drive Suzuka against anybody called Alain Prost. Just saying. This is the car Senna drove for his second F1 World Championship in 1990. This was the year he uttered his famous line, "If you no longer go for a gap that exists, you are no longer a racing driver." And if you think Reza is going to pass up on the opportunity to bring the McLaren MP46 Honda V12 into the sim, the car with which Senna became the youngest three-time F1 champion in the history of the championship, you don't know Brazilians. This car was unreliable and not the best on the grid. Even more impressive that McLaren and Senna were able to win the championship. And while they are not part of this pack, we would be remiss not reminding you that you can already drive the Lotus 72E and the McLaren M23 driven by Emerson Fittipaldi in Automobilista 2. as we said, a couple of acceptable Brazilians in Formula 1. Reza would also like you to know they, and especially their lead audio designer Domagoj Lovric, have worked incessantly on making the sound of these cars especially accurate, which is no small feat considering the scarcity of usable sound material available. This means the sound in this DLC will not be final, as Domagoj is still working on the details. The Brazilian Racing Legends Part 1 pack costs €15 USD. Historical Track Pack Part 1. It's not like Automobilista 2 is not a treasure trove of historic tracks, but this pack brings only historic versions of tracks like Cascais in its 1988 configuration, or Jerez again in its 1988 configuration, or one we did not expect at all, Bathurst 1983. If you consider driving on modern Bathurst bunkers, you have to check this version because it's Aussie bunkers. It's bunkers in a way only a country of extremely friendly people living with the most poisonous animals in the world can be. The 3 historic tracks can be yours if you pay €10 USD. Nürburgring 1971 seems not to have been ready yet, but be assured Reza are only crossing the T's and dotting the I's on that one. It'll come soon. But all of this is still not enough for Reza. We have grown accustomed to big content and or update drops, but the next one's impressive, while not completely unexpected. Reza have never stopped talking to different IP owners to be able to expand the content they simulate, and the newest of them is Nissan. Be ready to be finding Nismo cars in the list of content for Automobilista 2 from now on. Starting with the Nissan R89C, a sports prototype. Then comes a car within one of my favorite classes, the Class 1 R390 GT1 from 1998 with a twin-turbo V8 car. And not to ignore one of the favorite classes of most sim racers, the 2017 Nissan GT-R GT3 comes into Automobilista 2 in this update. Further Nismos will be added to the sim in due time. This is only the beginning. Well, that's it for now. Only with regards to new content. Reza would not be Reza if they wouldn't continue to expand the sim. One of these expansions is to allow you to adjust the pit speed limit any way you want it to be, including no pit limit at all. A very interesting addition to the sim is what they call motorsports presets, which will allow you to choose a complete set, or in this case preset, of rules according to any of the known racing classes out there. You will still be able to tweak them if you so want, but if you want the standard rules, they are only one click away now. Not many changes in the physics for once, but because of the supercars, Reza has taken a look at the physics of all-weather tires, and because of the classic F1 DLC, they did the same to the F Retro and F Classics already available. Some force feedback corrections here and there belong to the overall, we'd call it cleaning up of the physics. And as of this version, the advanced mechanical damage modeling, which pertains to damage of a lot of internal stuff within the car, has now been expanded to all classes, with the exception of cards, including statistical failure rate, which are what some of the most crazy sim racers want to be able to have a realistic race. On the design front, the point where art and usability converge, they have worked with Charles Robillard on the cockpit of the Porsche 911 GTE. If Charles' name rings a bell, it's because he's one of the best and most prolific mod makers within the Automobilista 2 ecosystem. Again, a signal that Reza listens to their users and fans, and more power to them for that. More about mods later in this segment, but let's continue. You will be able to race AI opponents from DLCs you don't own, and the intelligence of the AI has gotten yet another pass and fine-tuning. Regarding the further future of Automobilista 2 in 2023, as we said, Racer has worked extensively into making multiplayer better, and while they don't have anything specific to say about it, they've made it clear this is going to be one of their focus in this year. We do know they have been testing and tweaking and analyzing during last December. Let's give them the time they need to find bugs, improve the experience and deliver something as jaw-dropping for multiplayer as the 1.4 was for physics. About the planned DLCs for this year we already did a segment, see the link up there, so we won't go into details again. And Reza will also concentrate into delivering content and more opportunities for endurance racing within Automobilista 2. And now comes a big change within the philosophy of Automobilista 2. While in the past Renato had gone on record saying they would not explicitly support modding whilst not forbidding or avoiding it, now they changed their stance. Not a 180, but still an important change. In the future, Reza will offer resources and information to serious mod makers and open up a subsection of their forum specifically for those to exchange experience and help each other. They also recognize adding mods to Automobilista 2 is, in their words, cumbersome, and will try to make it easier to mod, while reducing expectations to a realistic level, as the Madness code never allowed adding mods, and therefore it's quite possible the modability of Automobilista 2 will never be as easy as Assetto Corsa. Still, this is a significant change for Reza, going from mod if you like but we'll ignore you to go ahead and mod, and here's some resources and a place to talk, and let's see how we make it easy. Adding to that, the newly introduced possibility for track mods by the Project Cars modding team, and let's see how far mods for Automobilista 2 will go. We are sure mods are one of the reasons why Assetto Corsa is more than alive and kicking. Check the usage statistics on this video, and would love to see Automobilista 2 to be as alive and kicking 8 years after its release as Assetto Corsa is today. Proof that we are alive and kicking can be found by checking the playlist to the left or the video to the right. Until next time, save fuel, collect pickup, and we'll see each other on the podium.